How we doing? Good morning. You well? Monday morning it is. Nice to be chatting with you this morning. I'm in good form. Thanks for joining me, by the way. See quite a few people have joined already. I'm really pleased to see that. I don't do these regularly enough. And before I go any further, I just want to remind you that in the new year, I'll be doing one of these every morning for about 25 minutes. But it'll be much better than this. It'll be produced, so I'll have graphics on screen and I'll be able to play a bit of video and put newspaper headlines and stuff, or newspaper screen grabs and stuff up there so you can see it. It'll be a bit more professional than this. Hi to Gary Lennon in Loch Gorman in Wexford in Ireland. How you doing, Gary? Nice to know you're listening, watching even. We've got people in Alberta, Canada. We've got people in Massachusetts tuned in Bacata in Canada. And my old friend Susan Tonkin is listening in or watching in Australia, where it's late on Monday evening. Susan, it's nearly over for you. Monday is nearly over. People don't like Mondays. Hi to Helen in Northumberland and Joe and Rhetorical Oracle. Yeah, my teeth maybe need to be adjusted this early. So I've got Cathy O'Brien coming on the programme this evening on the radio show. I suppose long-time listeners probably would have expected that I would have invited Cathy on the programme. I mentioned Cathy a few times yesterday on Sunday View. We talked about George H.W. Bush, didn't we, who died over the weekend, the 41st president of the United States. And we talked about the eulogies and the obituaries in the newspapers. We talked about the tributes to George H.W. Bush by the Clintons and by the Obamas and all of that. So Cathy O'Brien will be obviously very well known to listeners of this programme and programmes like this. Cathy was obviously an unwilling participant in the CIA MK Ultra programme. And she's been on this programme a couple of times, but not for quite a long time, actually. She pointed that out to me last night, Cathy, when I was swapping emails with her. It's been quite a while since she was on. And because the program has grown in the manner in which it's grown over the last few years, I think quite a good number of our listeners won't have heard Cathy O'Brien speaking before. So I'm looking forward to speaking to her tonight. So she's the only guest, because there's so much in that. She's going to be the only guest. So we'll have a good news roundup. I think we'll have a few laughs in the first half an hour tonight. We'll have a few giggles. And we will then introduce Cathy O'Brien, and she'll stay with me till around about 7 o'clock. So hi to Gail, hi to Julie, hi to Venus Rising, to Ricky, to John B. The grand jury going to look at 9/11. I've seen some Twitter talk about that, John. I have to say, the best thing to do when you're ignorant is to shut up. I don't know much about that, so I don't know if there's any truth in it or not. It'll be interesting to watch that. Hi to Robert as well. So there you go. So when I say we'll be doing more of these in the new year, just to give you, to put more meat on that, in a couple of weeks, it won't be straight away, but in around about mid to late January, I'll be speaking with you every morning around about 11 o'clock for about 20 to 25 minutes only, right? But that's long enough. It'll be a news bulletin and it'll be video. It'll be me video, and I'll have some clips, I'll have some audio, I'll have some video, and I'll have some screen grabs and news headlines and stuff like that. That's what I'll do. But that's not going to affect the radio show. The 2-hour live radio show will go ahead every day between 5 and 7. And the Sunday View show will go, as usual, at 11 o'clock. It's not going to affect anything. And it's not going to tax me in terms of, it's not going to be so taxing for me to do it. I've worked out how it'll be pretty straightforward for me to get it ready. And it won't take an awful lot of time either. Blue Apple asks me, what do you think of QAnon? Well, if you've been listening to the program regularly, I don't mean that to sound critical. If you've been listening to the program, I don't mean it to sound like that. Long-time listeners will know that I think the idea that Donald Trump is his own man and that he's a maverick president working for the people is ridiculous. That's how I think. That's how I feel anyway. So obviously, I think the idea that QAnon is a real thing is ridiculous as well. Ridiculous. But that's my opinion. You believe what you want to believe. Hi to Rose. How you doing, Rose? Lovely to see you too, Rose. Thanks. And hi to Paul Greystone. Hi to Sean. Majin Mott Richie says, Sean, good morning to you too, Sean. Good morning to you, mate. Diagwit, as we say back home. Right, I've got a couple of things. Yeah, let's get to it. You can't see the jazz woman, but she's over there, the jazz. I'm not panning the camera, by the way, because this room, this is my man cave. This is where generally at weekends I come and sit down, listen to a bit of music, read a book, and just get offline completely. I don't spend a lot of time online at the weekends. This is my little man cave with my little hi-fi separates there. By the way, the last time I mentioned hi-fi separates, somebody said to me, your hi-fi separates are in the wrong order. Well, of course they are. What do I know about it? I know nothing, right? But I don't know which order they're supposed to be in. The amp is at the bottom, then the tape decks. And I do have tapes as well. Then you have the graphic equalizer, then you have the radio, then you have the CD player, then you have the turntable. I don't know what order they're supposed to be in, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Anyway, to more important matters. Just a few things, right? A little bit of Brexit. Don't go anywhere. Stay there. Don't switch off. 30 seconds. It's just because it's the biggest story of the day. This constitutional crisis bollocks that we've been hearing about. Let me bring it up there on my little tablet there. The Prime Minister has been advised by the Attorney General that the backstop arrangement that she has come to with the European Union in order to avoid a hard border. I'm fucking boring myself. I'm going to fall asleep here. This backstop arrangement that would keep the whole of the UK in a temporary customs union to avoid a hard border in between Northern Ireland and Ireland. Apparently, May was advised by the Attorney General, whose name is Cox, right? Geoffrey Cox, is that right? Yeah, Geoffrey Cox. He's actually said to May, you've been trapped, love. Love, you've been trapped. You can never get out of that, love. And the European Union will be able to prevent you getting out of it. May has been lying through her teeth, which she's been doing ever since she entered public life, and saying that it's only a temporary thing. You lying bastard, love. You liar. It's not temporary. It keeps the UK in the customs union forever and ever if the EU desires it to be so. Anyway, she's not published the full legal advice she got from this guy. Parliament is up in arms about that, saying you've got to publish it, all the advice. And there have been threats of no confidence declarations made by Labour and others in May if she doesn't present the full advice she was given by the Attorney General, Sir Geoffrey Cox. Did you understand that? Well, am I suggesting you're sick? Of course I'm not. But this is the language they use, and the way they present this is designed to make you go, oh, fuck that. Fuck that, couldn't be bothered. Switch over to EastEnders. That's what it's designed to do. Just make you go, ah, forget about it. So that's basically story number one today. Apparently, Geoffrey Cox is going to make a statement about this later on. And after his statement, there'll be 5 days of Brexit debate. I bet you're looking forward to that. Right, so that's that story. What else have we got for you today? And the one I put in the title, I put a headline in the title about vegans. This made me laugh this morning. Oh, there'll be some triggering. Sacked vegan claims discrimination in landmark case. What's this about? A guy called Jordi Casamigiana. Practiced the pronunciation this morning. Jordi Casamigiana. He is going to ask a tribunal basically to decide whether veganism is a philosophical belief like a religion. Like a religion, right? Why is that coming about? Why is that happening? Well, Jordi Casamigiana says that he was sacked by the League Against Cruel Sports. They fired him. He says it was after he disclosed that the League Against Cruel Sports invested in pension funds involving firms which use animals for testing. So he was like, why would the League of why would the league against, not the league of cruel sports, the league against cruel sports, why would you invest pension funds in firms involved in animal testing? He says, for asking that question, he was fired, claiming that he was discriminated against, and the tribunal is going to decide now whether veganism should be protected in law. And of course, that will mean presumably criticism of veganism and presumably legislation against hate speech against vegans, presumably, right? Right. This is funny. So he talks about ethical veganism. I've got some funny audio to bring you during the monologue of the live radio show later on, which will make you laugh. Some vegans have been phoning the national radio stations this morning, and they're delighted, the vegans. They're delighted. It's a new vulnerable group. Society, of course, is creating thousands and thousands of vulnerable groups and giving them status, right? New status that protects them from criticism or from hate speech or whatever the hell. I have a lot of admiration for vegans, really, to be honest. I really do. I do. And I did say on a show recently, and I wasn't lying, that I've been flirting with the idea of a plant-based diet, beginning a plant-based diet and staying on one. I've been off the alcohol for just over 2 weeks, by the way. Never a massive binge drinker, but I did hit it heavy at weekends. I was fed up with it. I said this yesterday. So I've been off to drink 2 weeks. I'm going to see how far I can get with it. I'm sure on Christmas Day I'm going to have a couple of brandies. I mean, come on, for fuck's sake, come on, give me a break. Christmas Day, maybe Boxing Day, maybe the 27th, maybe the 28th, maybe New Year's Eve. Maybe. But until then, I'm off it. Anyway, some vegans were saying this morning on national radio that when they are on Facebook and they're speaking with people about various things, when they declare that they are vegans, they get sent photographs of bacon frying in frying pans. And some of these people said that's hate speech and it has to be stopped. So it could be against the law to send a vegan a picture on Facebook of a frying pan full of rashers. Jesus, Mary, and Holy Saint Joseph, huh? That's where we're going. Ethical vegans try to exclude all forms of animal exploitation. They don't wear or buy clothes made from wood or wool. They don't buy clothes made from wool or leather. They avoid suede, of course. They don't buy toiletries from companies that use animals to test those toiletries. I have great admiration for their conviction. I really do. I would not mock it. I would not denigrate it. I have an awful lot of time for it. A lot of time for it. But this is Orwellian beyond belief, isn't it? Bringing in legislation to protect people from opinions that they don't like. Now, where vegans are saying we're being discriminated against, because I work in the public sector. I work in the public sector and I go to a canteen that is subsidized by my company in the public sector, and there are no vegan options. Now, I agree with the vegan there. Surely to Christ, you can come up with one or two alternatives. Surely you can poll your staff to say, so your manager's name is Mary. Mary, you're the manager. Find out how many people we've got that are vegans. Mary will come back and go 4, 6 maybe. In 1,000, she might say 25. Right, well, we'll get 25 vegan meals ready on a daily basis. That's not hard. And it's wrong. And that is discrimination, I believe. But I think that's already protected, isn't it? I think there's already legal precedents for things like that. This new creeping fascism is mad. The League Against Cruel Sports actually said that this guy's very confused. They said he was dismissed from his position because of gross misconduct. Yeah, I mean, the timing was amazing. He said that the League Against Cruel Sports were investing in pension funds, and those pension funds have shares in companies that test on animals. I'm not sure he was sacked for gross misconduct. I think this guy might have a point. But what really cheesed me off this morning, what really pissed me off this morning was they want to change some of these people, some of these vegans, they want to change the language. So you can't say flogging a dead horse anymore, which is a great saying. It's a great old saying. Flogging a dead horse means that basically you're on an errand or you're trying to do something where you can't finish it, where you can't complete it. It's a task that cannot be completed, right? You're trying to get something to happen that just can't happen. Flogging a dead horse. And these people were on national radio this morning saying we've got to change that. We can't use language like that anymore. You know, there is more than one way to skin a cat. They were saying you can't say that anymore. It's offensive. That's where this goes. Hubbard says they're silly sausage. That's where this goes. They want to change the language. Kill two birds with one stone. A vegan said this morning on national radio, we've got to eliminate that language. We can't be saying kill two birds with one stone. It's not okay to throw stones at birds. That's where it gets creeping, and that's where it gets fascistic. Like I said, I admire vegans. I admire the conviction, the courage of their convictions. I admire their morals, and I agree. I agree with them that it's not right to for animals to be mistreated. It's not right that in many parts of the world, and maybe in this country, that slaughtering practices are not as humane as they could be. I'll agree with that all day long. But anyway, it's mad. We might talk a little bit about that during the monologue tonight. I'll bring you some funny audio, right? But vegans don't get up in arms. I'm not criticizing you or your lifestyle. What we're criticizing is trying to impose your thinking on everybody else. It's not good. It's not good. We'll support you all day long. Support your right to have vegan options when you work in the public sector. Absolutely. It's wrong that you don't have a vegan option. Unique Co says here, killing animals is not right. It lowers your frequency. And a lot of my audience will agree with that. Will agree with that. Some people will say, though, that people who eat a plant-based diet, if you want to take it to the extreme, maybe plants are conscious beings as well. Maybe plants are sentient beings. I've heard that argument made before, right? Very funny scene in Notting Hill, isn't there? When one of Hugh Grant's blind dates she's even beyond a vegan, isn't she? She won't pick fruit or anything like that. I can't remember. Anyway, vegans. Let's leave vegans alone. Let's move on. Is this boring the absolute shit out of you? Well, you see, they'll be queuing up to say yes. It is. Get off, you bally Irish bastard. Get off. No, I'm staying here for another 15 minutes. The head of MI6, Alex Younger, is going to speak today. He's giving a speech. And in the speech, he's going to spend a lot of time warning about Russia. He's going to spend quite a bit of time telling you and me that, well, we should be hiding under our beds because Russia is spending all of its time trying to come up with new, weird and wonderful ways to hurt the West. That's what he's doing. Alex Younger. He's going to talk about how MI6 exposed the perpetrators of the Skripal poisoning, which is the greatest fairy story, the greatest fairy tale ever pushed on the people of the UK. One of, anyway. Well, September the 11th, obviously, could take the blue ribbon. The 7th of July bombings, 2005, ridiculous, preposterous story. Yes, but the Skripal story is so ridiculous. Just that little perfume bottle with the poison in the bin, it's absolutely fucking preposterous, right? But he's going to talk about it anyway, and he's going to use that example of how the Russians are trying to kill us all. Did I wake you? Sorry about that. That's boring as arseholes, so we'll move right on. What have we got next? It's interesting. It is interesting. Just before we leave the Russian story, makes me laugh. Black Claw says, yeah, the Russians are behind the fires in California. Yeah, that's right. Behind everything. I ran 7 kilometers this morning. I normally do it in just under 40 minutes. Took me 45. The fucking Russians. Had to be the Russians. Had to be. Those traffic lights all being red must have been the Russians. He's going to talk, is this MI6 complete madman, about Russia and Russia's plans for the West and how Russia is pushing and pushing and pushing. Nowhere today will a UK television or radio presenter have the balls to talk about an agreement made between the West, between the head of NATO and Mikhail Gorbachev when the Berlin Wall came down, a promise that was put in writing, the promise being that NATO would not expand any further east. Russia is surrounded by NATO bases and NATO hardware. If you were a Russian person, that would leave you with very good reason to be paranoid about Western so-called democracies and their intentions for your country, wouldn't it? You're surrounded by the fuckers, right? Right? But MI6 is going to talk about how Russia is a threat to the UK when all the evidence is that the UK and its NATO allies have surrounded Russia in direct violation of an assurance and a promise given after the Berlin Wall came down. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, here's one for you. James O'Brien, monumental Muppet James O'Brien. He presents a mid-morning radio show for LBC Radio, leading Britain's conversation. It used to be London's biggest conversation. They made them a national radio station. It's garbage. It's chock full of garbage from breakfast till drive time. Rubbish. Piss poor presenters, many of them not qualified to present radio programs, let alone national programs. O'Brien, the monumental fucking hypocrite, 5 or 6 months ago, James O'Brien put out a tweet saying, about 6 months ago, that Andrew Neil, he of the big ears, you can talk, you baldy bastard, Richie. Exactly. We've all got facial inconsistencies. Although I think I'm pretty gorgeous, to be honest, these days. Anyway, O'Brien said about 6 months ago that he admired Andrew Neil's ability to be impartial when interviewing people about Brexit. O'Brien said 6 months ago, I've great admiration for Andrew Neil because Neil is obviously a Brexiteer, but he keeps it out of his program. Today, he's saying something completely different. Oliver says I should go to Specsavers. That's where I got these. That's where I got these. Are you telling me I'm not really handsome? Drat, must be the glasses. So anyway, back to O'Brien. And he tweeted back in June, did James O'Brien, the little hypocritical bastard. He tweeted, nobody is politically impartial. It's an intellectually impossible position. It is, however, easy to be politically impartial if a job requires it. As Andrew Neil proves daily, you can hold very strong political views without allowing them to influence your broadcasting in any way. That was back in June. So what has changed? Well, apparently now Andrew Neil publishes Nazi apologists in The Spectator. He's the editor of The Spectator. Racists, climate change deniers, homophobes, misogynists, and disaster capitalists. And O'Brien is lamenting the fact that O'Neill is considered impartial enough to present BBC political programmes. What changed in 6 months? And is James O'Brien, that horrible little bastard, in any position to criticise another broadcaster for being impartial. Really? I have to listen to some of it. I don't want to, but I don't have any choice. Has anybody listened to O'Brien's rants about Brexit on a daily basis, talking about impartiality? He presents a mid-morning talk show for a national radio station and presents a daily lament about Brexit, lamenting the fact that the UK voted to leave, in which O'Brien regularly alludes to those who voted for Brexit as a bunch of moronic fucking racists. That's how O'Brien sees people who voted for Brexit, as a bunch of moronic, backwards, Cletus the slack-jawed fucking yokel racists, according to O'Brien. And he's having a go at Andrew Neil. I did a monologue on O'Brien back in, I don't know whenever. It's on YouTube. Look for Richie Allen, James O'Brien on YouTube. And I put it on Twitter this morning because there's a classic O'Brien monologue that I dissected just to show who this guy really is. 25 past 11, folks, as I talk to you. I can't stick around for too much longer. The future Mrs. Allen is in France this week. Somebody asked earlier on about the riots in Paris. And Caroline arrived in Paris very early on Saturday morning, and she had to go across the city to get a train, and she had a bit of time to kill. Caroline did, and she did come across. She basically went right through the Champs-Élysées area where a lot of these protesters were gathered over. They're protesting about fuel. The French, of course, fuel duty. Diesel, an increase, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? An increase in fuel duty and all the rest of it. Yeah, you've got to admire them. One of the things I've said 1,000 times, maybe not recently, the Occupy protesters, and a lot of these protests like we see in France, my biggest gripe is that they eventually go home instead of growing in number, marching to the government buildings and throwing out the Rothschild Zionist-owned whoremongers on their arses. That's the tragedy. That's the tragedy. Right? Harpo says they're not protesting, they are celebrating Bush's death. Harpo, you're not really up on current events, pal, are you? They were protesting before Bush died. And it is about fuel in France. You got to admire the French truck drivers. You know, this is proper protest. When, I don't know when it last happened, but when they decide to just block up all the roads and say to the government, to the establishment, listen, we're not having it anymore. I have a lot of time for the French attitude to protest. But they go home. Ultimately, they go home. They pack up and they go home. We saw 1 million people march against the war in Iraq here in London. I'm not in London. In the UK, I'm in Manchester. 1 million. But they went home. Imagine they'd gone to Downing Street. What army would have fired on 1 million people? Imagine it. Imagine they'd gone to Downing Street and said, Tony Blair's got to get the fuck out of there. He's gone. Then the million had gone to Westminster and said, we're taking over this building. And then the million had gone to Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle and thrown those fucking inbred scumbag fucking royal family out on their arse as well. Imagine they'd have done all of that. They went home. That's the problem. This is all connected to what I talked about yesterday about the false independent media, the mainstream light independent media, the left-wing independent media claiming to be independent, but really, you know, advocating and pushing the system. You know, the alternative is to do away with the system. And I'm not going to get into that anymore. Kind of lost it a bit there. But they are inbred, this royal family. There's a lot more I could say about them here, but I've said it all before, so I'm going to leave it there. Right, we're approaching half an hour. I've got to go and do some work. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Thanks for the comments that have come in there. Thanks for spending a bit of time with me this morning. I appreciate it. The Richie Allen Show is live every Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. UK time. First and foremost on the homepage, richieallen.co.uk. On the homepage. If you go to richieallen.co.uk, you will see on the left-hand side of the page, there is a player. If you press play, you will hear the program all the time. It plays on a loop, and I go live at 5, right? But it's also on fabradiointernational.com, triggerwarning.tv. It's on TuneIn Radio and other places as well. Right, that's it. I'm out of here. We will speak at 5 then. Cathy O'Brien is my guest today, the one and only guest, and I'm looking forward to speaking with Cathy. It's been so long since we spent, since she was on our program, and it's been so long since we spoke, so there's a lot has happened in the meantime. Alrighty, speak to you at 5, and have a good Monday until then. Bye now. Bye for now.